Hi again. Now I'd like to give you a little bit of an insight on the processes we are currently working on in course of the Fruits project. It's quite a big project. It's an FP7 project where Fruit stands for Vulnerable Road Users and ITS. And we are trying to develop an impact assessment methodology for intelligence transport systems and vulnerable road users. So a methodology that allows us to identify the potential and hazards and adverse effects of these new technologies on the very understudied field of vulnerable road users, pedestrians, cyclists, and especially, of course, motorcyclists. Well, anyways, the main interest of this presentation lies in the basic research phase of the project, where we, on the one hand, tried to integrate the stakeholders in course of focus group discussions and experts from different fields, technology, policy, and so on, and then dig a little bit about into the field of accident data availability and consistency. And there, the presentation will not so much discuss the actual findings, because we've seen from the other experts with the great presentations on accident data, there's basically a general knowledge on these things, but dig really into the limitations we are confronted with in basically each of these projects. So the general aims of the Fruits project are to identify the potential and the impact, as I said, of intelligent transport systems on vulnerable road user mobility, and the potential to increase and improve the safety of these groups. And then, of course, we are also trying to come up with a set of recommendations that can be used by responsible authorities, ministries, to how to integrate ITS into the field of vulnerable road user safety. So I think we can skip this slide. It's a big project. We are 12 partners, and it's a 3-year project. So we are currently in the basic phase, as I already said. We still have 2 years ahead of us. And the basic research phase was focusing on actual road user needs, on actual vulnerable road user needs. And we applied, on the one hand, focus group discussions to really identify critical situations from the point of view of motorcyclists, assess the needs of motorcyclists towards ITS, and then discuss with experts what applications actually have the potential to improve safety. So, I mean, these are the general results of the focus group discussions, and I think they correspond really to what we've already heard from the other experts talking yesterday and today. So starting out with the critical situations, we really have seen that the motorcyclists are a group that is very aware of what they're doing, about the hazards, about critical situations. And we've also seen that especially the system knowledge is on a very high level, although most of the systems we discussed with the motorcyclists were focusing on cars. So as we've already heard, lots of motorcyclists are also car users, pedestrians, public transport users. So we really saw that the high number of available ITS are usually related to cars. So, and we also know that road users are usually very skeptical when it comes to new technological innovations, especially the motorcyclists. And we really have to, it's not an easy way to communicate to them the functions without them having to really trying them out. That's also the reason why we are trying to implement field trials in 4 different states to really confront them with the functions of these new technologies. So the potential hazards and adverse effects we conducted these focus groups in Spain, the Netherlands, in Sweden and in Austria, and really saw that one of the main aspects motorcyclists were afraid of is loss of autonomy. Loss of autonomy in the riding task, the distraction by the HMIs, over-reliance and overconfidence, who is responsible if something happens, which is closely related to technological limitations, and then, of course, the abilities that are connected with using these new systems. There are reservations due to decreasing spatial abilities, due to navigation systems. There are a lot of studies out there on that already, the driving skills and the reaction times. So the general suggestions were not so much focusing on ITS, but way more on things like education, on information, on awareness raising among the motorcyclists. But when it came to suggestions the motorcyclists set towards these systems, we really saw that they need to be adapted to the different motorcyclist groups. There's a high variety within the group of motorcyclists, and these systems need to be really take to account these differences. And then, of course, also focus the development not only on the vehicle, but also on the infrastructure. And some of the systems that were identified as having a high potential, of course, this is very of limited validity, because the number of systems that were in-depth discussed in the focus groups was very low. So this is just a very short list of systems that came up, motorcyclists saw as being positive or would have an advantage or improve safety.